I say it all the time. We are not going to heal from what we ain't real about and what we ain't honest enough to deal with. And the sad reality is there are a number of individuals, young people, who have basically accused, especially the church, and we stand guilty of giving God a bad name. Because I've had young people say, Pastor, I ain't praying no more after the events of Monday and Tuesday, because I know there's a new narrative now. But I think we're big enough to not only mourn for the loss of police officers, but we also don't forget what brought Thursday's march on in the first place. And so young people have said to me, Pastor Haynes, I ain't praying no more. We prayed at your church after the George Zimmerman verdict who killed Trayvon Martin. And after that happened, Tamir Rice got killed. Mike Brown got killed. Call the roll, all got killed. And we prayed. And they said, we ain't praying no more. And I understand, because we're guilty of having prayers without feet. We're guilty of missing what the Bible says, and that faith without works is dead. And so we wasting a whole lot of time with our Kumbaya moments. God don't even show up when we do Kumbaya and we're not keeping it 100 and then making sure our prayers have feet. So with that being the case, I think it's good to have this community conversation tonight. To have this conversation, why? Because at the top level, it's going to be very important for us to go ahead and acknowledge how angry, to acknowledge how painful, how confused this situation is, and the fact that we feel, who is it? Lauryn Hill, Black Rage is founded on blatant denial, squeezed economics, subsistence, survival, deafening silence, social control. Black Rage is founded on wounds on the soul. There are wounds on our soul. And you're not going to let me express my wounds? You're not going to let me deal with my pain? You want me to all of a sudden say, let's hug, kiss, and make up? No. We can't hug, kiss, and make up until there is a rectifying of the structures of hate that bring about racial injustice and racial division. And let's keep it 100. Dallas, it happened here, but it could happen in any city in this country, because there's something wrong with the policing structure. I ain't anti-police. I got me some good officers in this house right now who I love, who I know they are about the business. They care for us. They protect and they serve. But there is a system of policing. Why do I say it's a system? Because it ain't even black and white. 3 of the cops who helped kill Freddie Gray that will get exonerated are black. And all of us have had bad experiences with black cops and white cops. So it ain't about that. It's about a system that needs to be corrected. And as far as I'm concerned, if we don't allow us to have this, thank you, Dominique, conversation to say exactly how we feel. I don't know how you feel, but my heart goes out to a generation that has had to watch this nonsense in real time. I hurt for that 4-year-old girl who had to grow up real quick in Minnesota and say to her mommy, don't worry, I'm still here for you. And then she got snatched from her mother, a la the days of slavery. I hurt for that 15-year-old boy whose daddy, Alton Sterling, is now dead in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Can we hurt for the families of the Saline police officers and the families of Alton and the families of Philando? All I'm trying to say, Mr. President, if you gonna come to Dallas, you need to go to Baton Rouge. You need to go to Minnesota. You need to go to Staten Island. You need to go down to Prairie View. You need to go to every place where there has been an unnecessary slaying of a black body. That's what's up. So my thing is, we ought to have that conversation where we say how we honestly feel. I'm a preacher, but right now I'm ticked off. I'm sick of this. I'm sick of waking up hoping I don't see something on the TV that reminds me of what happens every time I see a cop in my rear view mirror, and I hope they don't pull me to the side because I already have an attitude. And my mama's telling me, just make sure you get home. But I got an attitude. And I ain't the only one. Y'all can judge me all you want to. But we're angry because we're sick of this. And the bottom line is, it ain't like nothing has changed. It's just now it's on video. We got cell phones. So I'm about to present Dominate, but this is what I've been wrestling with. And that is, Senator West, I'm so glad you're here. I appreciate you being you and being here. Because Senator West, my anger gets amplified when I hear one of my colleagues at a big church downtown go on Fox News this morning and have the nerve to say black people need to teach their kids how to behave around police. Yeah, he said it this morning. This morning he said it. And my thing is, and you can tell him I said it because he won't talk to me, but until you've been black, I ain't trying to hear you tell me how to tell my kids how to behave. Because let's keep it real. Can I keep it real? Philando Castile did everything right. And he's dead. So maybe, and I always hear these conversations, let's do a training session to teach black people how to behave around cops. When are we going to do a training session to teach cops how to behave around black folks? That's how I'm feeling right now. And this ain't, don't say I'm up here spewing hate. This ain't hate, this is straight love. Straight love. I promise you, it comes from my heart because I'm sick of this. And so number one, we got to have this conversation and talk about how we feel and heal. But then number two, as far as I'm concerned, we need a plan of action. I'm proposing, I said it on Periscope day before yesterday, that we go to the Department of Justice and we change policing in this country once and for all. It never was meant to serve and protect us anyway. Y'all do know policing began in the slave patrols and the black codes and the convict leasing system and Bull Connor and Jim Clark. That's how it began. And it continues today. So my thing is, we need to change the policing system. I want to know the hiring practices. Who gets qualified to get hired? And do they go through a psychological evaluation to find out how you feel about black folk? Do you have a Napoleon complex? I know y'all don't like this, but I'm just saying that there needs to be a change. We need to check how people are hired. We need to check the training. Does the training automatically, and I talked to my colleague, Ralph West in Houston, who shared with me that a police officer in his congregation said, okay, I look at you 6'5", 250 pounds, I automatically assume you are a threat. I said, Ralph, that means that because of who you are, you were perceived as a threat, and they have procedures for taking out a threat. That's got to change. That's got to change. It's got to change. It's got to change. So your hiring practices, your training, your racial sensitivity, and then are police getting paid adequately? One of the most stressful jobs in the country, and you got to moonlight to make ends meet? That's sick, and that adds to your stress. And so if I've got to moonlight, I'm working 12 to 16 hours just to make ends meet, and I come into a stressful situation. I'm already stressed out, and don't let me have certain prejudgments about the people I'm coming in contact with. That makes for an explosive situation. We got to make sure our police officers are paid in a way that reflects the value we place on public servants who serve and protect. That's keeping it 100. And then your job is so stressful, you see the ugliest side of life. What kind of mental health services are you getting after a shooting, after you've been to this place and that place that's real negative. If all of that is not taken into consideration, we're going to wake up tomorrow and the news is going to come on, and real time we're going to see the same thing over and over again. But let me do this and I'm done. I'm bringing Dominique to the stage right now. Don't put all this on police. You put this on America. Put this on America. You're not going to like this, but Micah, rest his soul, no excuse. It was horrible, but he's homegrown. There comes a time when you reap what you sow. And when you're the most violent nation on the earth, Martin King said it. You don't quote this, Martin King. The number one purveyor of violence in this country, in this world, is the United States of America. That's how we solve problems with violence. And as long as we are dropping drones to justify our empire, colonizing this world and trying to police this world, as long as we do that, as long as we send folk to wars that never should have been in the first place, and see, here's how hypocritical we are. We send them to war and we manipulate emotions of people by saying, support our troops. But then when we come home, we have no support for our veterans. Don't tell me to support the troops and you ain't taking care of my veterans once they get home, and you don't give them adequate care and adequate services. Maybe Micah didn't get service. I ain't justifying, but I'm sure telling the truth. And so tonight we've come here, and I'm done. We've come here to have this conversation. Because I'm telling my colleagues, I don't want another prayer meeting. I don't want another Kumbaya. I do need time for us to grieve, mourn, and then call to action. Because I ain't trying to come back and do this again next year at this time. And I'm going to tell you who's about that life. That's Dominique Alexander. Dominique Alexander has put it on his heart that wherever injustice is, he's going to be there, because he's made up his mind to let his light shine. I like the brother because he believes in making a mark on the world and not letting the world make its mark on him. I like this brother because he recognizes we are the light of the world, and light works best not in the church, in the sunlight, but in the darkness outside. I like this brother because this brother knows he is the salt of the earth, and you ain't going to make no impact until you make some contact. I like this brother because he recognized that if you really follow Jesus, he did most of his ministry outside of church, and church folk today do most of our stuff inside. I'm done. But y'all do know where Jesus was when he fed the 5,000 outside. Y'all do know where he was when he healed the blind man outside. Y'all do know where he was when he had the march on Jerusalem and the crowd cried out, Hosanna, outside. Y'all do know where Jesus was when he got nailed to a cross, lynched on Good Friday, outside. The Bible says he got up on Sunday. Guess where he was when he got up on Sunday? Outside. Y'all do know he's coming back, and when he comes back, he's going to meet us in midair. Guess where midair is? Outside. Guess where we need to be? Outside. Well, get the hell out of here. Y'all, I present to you now my brother, my prophet, my preacher, my main man, the one and only Minister Dominique Alexander. He's about that life outside.